So thank you very much for having me today. My name is Rebecca Johnson. I am an Associate Director of Admission at the University of Illinois, Springfield. I have worked at UIS for about 2 years. And prior to that, I have worked at actually a variety of different colleges and universities, including a small private liberal arts college, as well as one of our large research universities in the United States. And something that I have worked at through the admissions process is working with students to find that best type of college that meets your individual goals. Here in the United States, we kind of refer to that as finding your fit. So identifying what's most important to you as you're selecting your different opportunities. And so I'm going to be kind of going through these different characteristics at the different schools in the United States. There's over 4,000 universities and college in the US, and each one is kind of unique in their own way. And so there's not a one size fits all model that works best for everybody. So a lot of what I'm going to be sharing with you today is a lot of questions to ask yourself and to ask different colleges and universities that you're looking at for your graduate studies. So a couple different things will be the type of school, the size of the school, where the school is located, rankings, cost, which is important to everyone, including the US students, as well as different faculty connections. So for different types of schools in the United States, as I mentioned, there's over 4,000 colleges and universities, and each one will really fall into one of these different categorizations. There's religion-affiliated universities, whether they're Catholic-based or Protestant-based, Jewish-based schools all over the United States. Usually these are private universities, and they range from a smaller college or university of around 1,000 students to more than 25,000 students. So there's a wide range of sizes within there. There's also private non-religious universities that also vary greatly in size. The regional universities are going to be similar to what the University of Illinois Springfield is, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But they are going to be more teaching focused. They're going to be smaller in size. And then there's the large research universities that you're probably the most familiar with. These usually do vary in size, but they are typically on the larger size. There are public and private research universities, and they're also considered part of the land-grant university. And what this is each state in the United States has one university that is set up dedicated to the teaching of agricultural, engineering, and technical skills. Here in the state of Illinois, it's the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Other schools include Cornell University, University of Florida, University or Texas Tech University. So you might be familiar with some of these larger research-based institutions. Now, as I mentioned on the previous slide, the size of these schools is going to vary, and different size schools offer lots of different opportunities for students. And so as you're going through and doing your research, I encourage you to look at the size of the school and see if this is going to be a good size school for you. So things to consider are the size of the classes. When I did my graduate work at a large research university, the classes I had were smaller. I was in the College of Education, but I know there were some classes that still had 100 to 150 people in them if they were on the more popular side of the programs. So you want to make sure that that classroom experience is what you are looking for when you're deciding on these different schools. The living arrangements at these different schools are going to be different. As a graduate student, are you going to be able to live off campus, or are graduate students expected to live on campus, or vice versa? Is on-campus housing even available to graduate students? And as you're looking at these different options, you need to make sure that you are easily able to find a place to stay once you arrive in the country. And the internship and the research opportunities that are going to be varied at these different size schools. The larger schools may certainly have more opportunities, but with that larger population could come a lot more competition. The smaller schools may not have as many opportunities for research and internship, but there could be less competition available. So looking at what that right size school is and what opportunities are going to be available to you is something very important to consider. The location of the school. Do you want to go to a big city like New York or Chicago or Miami? Do you want the vibrancy of that large city? Do you want to go to a suburban area, maybe outside of that large city? So we have our Chicago, which is the third largest city in the United States, is a couple hours north of us. And in the surrounding communities, there are also many universities around Chicago. The life in this suburban area is going to be very different than the vibrancy and the downtown life of downtown Chicago, but you're close to that city experience if that's something that's really important to you as you're choosing that. Then there's also smaller cities and cities that are also known as college towns. College towns are cities that are really built around universities, where there's a big blend between the city and the university. And this is where a lot of those large research universities are based. Historically, the research universities were founded in very rural areas. And as the university grew, the city grew around it as well. But these rural areas might be further away from that big city that you're looking for, or it could be exactly what you're looking for, with lots of different opportunities within that city itself, all focused around that university. Smaller cities that may not have that huge university focus can also provide a lot of resources for students, whether it's internships or job placements or the diversity of the city itself. And then the more rural areas tend to be smaller towns a little bit further away from the city. If city life isn't what you are looking for or what you're used to or want to experience, definitely look at the smaller areas, look at the rural areas, because that's going to be a great way for you to find a peaceful and quiet environment to be able to focus on your studies. As you're looking at the different locations, you also need to look at the community around the school you're looking at. Do a Google search or a search on the city where that school is located. What's there to do on weekends and during breaks? We know you guys want to have fun and explore when you come to the United States. How easy is it to get around the community, or say to hop on a train and go visit another city? And then the diversity of the community. Are you going to find individuals in the city that look like you, that have similar religious practices, similar belief systems? Because we want to make sure that that transition into the community for you is going to be a good transition as well. Are there diverse grocery stores? Are you going to be able to find food from home in the city you're looking at moving to? That's very important. I had a student who stayed with my family and I for a little bit over a year from West Africa, and she missed that home cooked food. And so we found a grocery store locally where she could go and find some of the food from her home and was able to make those meals for herself. And so it was a way for her to enjoy that piece of home as well as share her culture with my family and I. Are there opportunities for homestays maybe during breaks? That might be something that's important to you as well. If religion is something that is important to you, are there places of worship nearby that are easy to get to so that you can continue to focus on that that's important? Now, school ranking. This is where I am going to spend a little bit of time. Do not base your search entirely on a school's rank. There's been a lot of news recently here in the United States about school rankings, how many Ivy League schools like Princeton and Yale are no longer participating in the school rankings. And that's because school rankings can vary based on who's providing that ranking. What are they actually determining? In the United States, a lot of people look at the US News and World Report school ranking. Well, a lot of the information that's based on that ranking is looking at graduation rates, which is very important, but it's also looking at the financial aid that's available to US citizens. Well, that school ranking isn't necessarily going to be applicable to you because international students aren't eligible for the federal aid that the US provides. It's looking at class sizes, which is important, but again, based on your individual program, that ranking may not be applicable to what you are wanting to study. And just because a school is highly ranked doesn't mean it's going to be the best fit school for you. I worked at a university that was striving so hard to get in the top 10 university. Well, what does that mean? It means that they were getting more applications and denying more students, because the more students you deny, the more competitive you are, and that raises your ranking. But is that really something that universities should be striving for? We want to make sure that you have great access to a world-class education, and that can vary from school to school based on your individual needs. Rankings can also measure different things. Another school I worked at was the #1 party school in the United States. Not necessarily something that we in admissions were very proud of, but that was considered one of the rankings. So you really need to drill down and look at those rankings. What is that ranking really representing? And is that reflective of what you really want through your experience? As you're looking at schools and looking at everything, the one thing I can most strongly recommend, and this is something that Sandra pointed out earlier, is making sure the school is accredited, specifically regionally accredited, because we want to make sure that the credits and the degree you earned are going to be recognized not only here in the United States, but also around the world. Now, cost. This is something that is a top consideration for all students. And when you're looking at different schools, a phrase that is used most commonly is what's called the cost of attendance. So what's included in this cost of attendance? That's the tuition and fees that you have to pay to the university for your classes, your housing budget, whether you're living on campus or off campus, your food budget, because you have to eat, insurance, because that is going to be required while you study here in the United States, and then transportation and other miscellaneous expenses as well. This could include transportation to and from your home country. It could include the miscellaneous expenses like going to the grocery store to get shampoo and conditioner. So it's those basic living expenses while you are at the university itself. As you're going through and looking at your schools, the cost of attendance is going to be that average cost of attendance for graduate students attending that specific college or university. It is going to vary greatly from college to college and university to university based on the location, based on the type of school. And so we need to be asking some of these questions related to the cost so that you really understand that full picture of what it would cost to attend that university. How is tuition charged? Is tuition charged by the class you take, or is it a flat rate? Different universities will do things a little bit differently. So some schools will say if you take 6 credits, you only pay for 6 credits. Or it could be that if you take 9 credits or 12 credits, you only pay for 9. Because 9 is considered being enrolled full-time at the graduate level. Maybe you only have to pay for 9, but you can take an extra 2. So essentially, you're getting those 2 classes for free. That would be considered that flat rate tuition. A lot of schools at the graduate level do charge by the credit hour or the classes you are taking. So if you take 3 classes, you pay for 3 classes. If you take 4 classes, you pay for 4 classes. Another very important question to ask is tuition going to increase each year? If you're coming into a program that might take 2 or 3 years to complete, is the tuition you're going to be paying locked in that first year so that you know how to budget for the next couple of years? Or is that tuition subject to increase each year? Different states will do different things each year. Different universities will do different things. So that's a very important question to ask, because sometimes that tuition could go up $1,000 each year, and that's an additional expense that you have to have. And then, does your program have something called differential tuition, which means will your program cost more than other programs on campus? That cost of attendance is going to be looking at that base rate of that cost, but the differential tuition is going to make it cost more. Some programs that typically have differential tuition are going to be engineering programs, computer science, sometimes business programs will have differential tuition. And so you need to look and see if the program you're most focused on has that differential tuition at the different universities you're looking at, because that's going to impact that overall cost to attend the university as well. Some other things to consider, and I know there's lots of questions here, is on-campus housing available to graduate students? And is it even mandatory? There are some universities that will require their students to live on campus. Now, this is more typical at the undergraduate level or the bachelor's level, but it might be a requirement for some of the colleges or universities you're looking at. If you're able to live off campus, what options are available to you? And how hard is it for international students to live off campus? Here in the Springfield area, a challenge we have is a lot of times students have to have a US identification number or a social security number in order to get an apartment off campus. Well, if you're an international student just coming in and you don't have a job yet on campus, you don't have that social security number, so you can't find an apartment locally here in town. A lot of the colleges and universities outside of the really big cities also don't have hostels nearby. We had a large group of international students joining us, and they just said, well, we're going to go live in a hostel. Well, unfortunately, there aren't any in Springfield. So those are different things you need to consider and plan ahead for so that you know what cost you're going to have coming in. And if you do live off campus, how are you going to get to campus? Is there busing or buses or trains or taxis or Ubers available for you to get around? How hard would it be for you to get a driver's license? And are you able to find a car that would help you get from one place to the other? Again, these are all things that factor into those costs, even if they aren't directly paid to that university. And then what's available to help offset those costs? What funding opportunities are available? This is probably the number one question I get when working with students, both domestically and from other countries. Very few schools in the United States provide full funding for international students or even for any of their students. So you will have to pay some of those expenses, but the amount you have to pay will vary by school. So a good question to ask is, how is funding awarded to international students? Is the funding renewable? At the graduate level, how competitive are those graduate assistantships and internships? What percent of the applicants receive something? And when will you learn about that funding? Because a lot of times students need that funding in order to show the funding available for the I-20 in order to get that visa appointment. And so you want to make sure you have enough time to get everything lined up so that you have enough time to get that visa and get settled in the United States. Another important piece to look at when working with applying to schools is the connection with the faculty members. Some universities and colleges will require you to have the faculty sponsor before you even apply to the program. So is that something that is going to be easy for you to do? But there are many universities that don't require this. If it is required, how do you find that faculty sponsor? And again, if research is really important to you, are there faculty there that are doing very similar research? An easy example I can provide is my husband has his doctoral degree, and he really wanted to do research with insects. We have lots of bugs in our house and containers and things like that. And a lot of the research at the schools he was looking at were focusing on honeybees. Well, he didn't want to work with honeybees. And so he eliminated those schools and found a university that focused more on the pollinators he wanted to work with outside of those honeybees. So really look at the research and look at the publications that are coming out from the university, because that will help you, again, identify those best fit schools for you based on your individual wants and needs. And then after you graduate, what's going to happen next? What's available at that college or that university to help you get to that next step? A lot of universities will have career resource centers available for you. And this is where you can find job postings, maybe work on campus or out in the surrounding community. They can help you with your resume and your cover letter, help you with practice interviews. And then through your time, you'll be making connections with faculty members and fellow students so that you can really use those for networking opportunities. The International Student Services offices on different campuses as well will help you with that H-1B process, if that's something that's available to you, or that STEM extension. if that's the type of program you're going into. So definitely staying in touch with all of those different areas to make sure that your next steps are there. So I'm going to touch briefly a little bit more on the regional universities in the United States, because this is a type of university that doesn't get a lot of recognition because the universities are a lot smaller than those big, huge research universities, and they're not located in the large major cities in the United States. And the University of Illinois Springfield is one of these regional universities. This is essentially the entire campus that you're seeing here on the screen here. There's a little bit more behind where the picture was taken, but it's not a huge research or a huge university that's several miles or several kilometers wide. It's a very accessible college and university. So your regional public universities usually have less than 15,000 students enrolled in them. They offer smaller classes, much like a private university. And so you often get that private university experience, but a little bit lower cost. It usually has lower tuition than even the public large research universities, and often has additional financial aid opportunities that aren't available at larger schools. And so again, making sure that you can cover those costs and finding those diverse opportunities for you. It's also a very supportive campus community. Because it's usually a smaller campus, you get to know your faculty members, you get to know the staff members on campus well, and so they really make sure you're going to be successful while you're here. So a little bit more about UIS. We are about 320 kilometers southwest of Chicago and about 160 kilometers northeast of St. Louis. Those are our two major ports of entry for international students. And the city of Springfield itself has about 120,000 people living in it. So it's not a huge city, but it's, again, a very supportive city in order to really help that international student population. Our campus is under 5,000 students, but 15% of our students are international students. So we're split almost evenly undergraduate and graduate students, and we do have a lot of students who take classes online. And this is where that regional public really can help serve that larger audience as well. For fall 2023, the estimated cost for a graduate student to live on campus was around $30,500 for that fall and spring semester, and an additional $8,000 if you want to stay during the summer months living on campus and taking classes during the summer as well. At these regional universities, and specifically here at UIS, we have both on-campus options and online options. Those on-campus options are the ones that are eligible for that student visa, but the online degree can be earned from anywhere within the world. And at UIS, and usually at the regional universities, the classes taught through the online programs are taught by the same faculty members who teach the on-campus programs. And so you really get that same experience, whether you're taking the classes on campus or if you're taking those classes online. Some of the popular programs we have at UIS include public health, computer science, data analytics, management information systems, and environmental science that are STEM designated, as well as many non-STEM designated programs like public administration, education leadership. Sorry, I just realized I put public administration on there twice. It's actually one of our most popular ones for international students. History and business administration. And a lot of times at the regional schools, you won't find as many STEM programs such as engineering or really intense competitive computer science programs, because the large research universities have that. But there are going to be some great opportunities available to you at the regional universities, often with a lot less competition and a lot smaller classes, so you can really gain that information you need for your career. At UIS, we have two funding opportunities available to graduate students. We do offer graduate assistantships that are offered at many different colleges and universities. These are positions that are available on campus and include doing research, teaching, and pre-professional experiences, such as working in different offices on campus. Something that is very unique to UIS, though, is our graduate internship program. These are opportunities to work in the Springfield community with local government offices and nonprofit organizations to gain some of that real work experience, while also providing you with a funding opportunity for your school. All right, another picture. We've got spring slowly creeping its way into this area. Other things to consider, I think, with location that I didn't touch on is definitely the weather. Make sure that you are prepared for what the weather will be year-round for the universities you are considering. We are located in the Midwestern part of the United States. We have all 4 seasons here, and during the spring, you never know what you're going to wake up to each day. Just this past weekend, it was, I'm trying to think, I'm going to do my Celsius conversions. Let's just say it was very, very cold this past weekend. Today, it's a lot warmer. So you never know what's really going to expect during the springtime, but flowers will eventually be returning. And then we do have a nice warm summer as well. Okay, I think that is all I have. So just kind of a quick summary. Determine what is most important to you. Don't base everything on the rankings. Don't base everything on what everybody else has already told you. Do some individual research and think outside the box, knowing that sometimes the colleges and universities in those smaller communities, those regional publics, could be a lot more cost effective and still provide you with that world-class education you're asking for. Ask questions of the colleges and the universities. The admissions offices are here to help and answer any questions you might have specifically about that university. And we are more than welcome or happy to help guide you through that entire process. And stay in touch with your Education USA office. They provide such wonderful resources to students that you don't want to miss out on that. And then again, just find that best graduate student that works for you, or graduate school that works for you. So some contact information here. Dr. Jonathan Pierce wasn't able to join us today. He is our international admissions person. You also have my email address on here. This is our specific website for international students. And I'd be more than happy to take some questions.